Hi, I'm Jennifer McGuire, a guest teacher on twopeasinAbucket.com, and this is a holiday version of Thinking Inking. This will be an 8-week class where each week will focus on a different product and have 3 projects. So this is the first week, distress inks, and I'll show you some basic ideas for using them. Be sure to visit our first Thinking Inking class for more on just the basics of all these products. For the first project, we're going to do quick coloring with distress inks. This is one of my favorite things to do with distress inks, and I used it to make this cutesy reindeer. This is a Hero Arts digital image. I just downloaded it, sized it, and printed it with my inkjet printer on white cardstock. Now when you apply the ink with this ink blending tool, it has foam on it. You start off of the project and slowly work in circular motions onto the project, and that way you can make sure that you have good coverage without glops of color. And you can see here I'm dragging color from off the project onto it to create that darker color on the bottom side of the reindeer. This is a great way to create a shadowing effect. And I'm also going to do this by pulling from this with the side of the foam down below the neck. And then I'll also repeat this for the head too. And I've got a little post-it note on its nose so that we can color it red later. Now, ink blending is best with distress inks because of the way that they are formulated, so you can get good even coverage with the distress inks. And this technique is of course a much quicker way of coloring than using colored pencils or markers to color an image such as this large reindeer. So now I'm using one of my favorite tools, which is my finger, to apply some barn door red ink to the nose. Now this is one of my best tips for creating the look of texture on a project, and that's by stamping over color. So you can see on the reindeer there is a text image in the background. So I'm just inking up this Hero Arts Friend definition with distress ink and laying my reindeer right on it. And when we take this off, you'll see a little bit of that text in the background. It just gives a great look of texture and livens it up a bit. Very easy and quick way to add to your projects. Please visit the post link below so that you can get a free download of this reindeer that is sized just right to create this project. Now I'm going to add a little bit of shine to my reindeer. You can see here in the little picture. I'm first going to add little white dots of highlighting to his back. And this is white enamel accents from Ranger. It comes in a 2-pack with white and black. So you just put little droplets, and what's great about this product is that it immediately settles into a nice smooth dot. So you have a nice round ball of the product. This is the black from the same pack, and I'm just going to squeeze a bunch out for the eyeball, and it will be a perfect round eye. And finally, I'm going to use Glossy Accents, which is a product made to put a glossy finish on any stamped image. I'm going to rub this on his nose so his nose is nice and shiny, and then also add it to his antlers. This also makes the antlers stronger so they don't fall off. Now this is a very easy technique that I'm going to show you here. It's just inking patterned paper to give it a different look. So on this background, I started with some simple basic gray paper. I just love the soft texture of it, but I'm going to stamp with the distress inks just to liven it up a bit and make it customized for this project. So I'm using the starry sky background from Hero Arts, and you can see how it completely changes the paper. And to make it pop, I'm rubbing some vintage photo distress ink on the edges with my ink blending tool. And then I added a little customized greeting with computer fonts, and I was good to go. Now the second project, and this shows how to do watered ink backgrounds. I totally made up this name, but it's something fun that you can do with distress inks. So you can see this kind of marbly soft background. It's done using distress inks and water. Now this is a fun way to use your craft sheet. That's the brown surface I'm working on. It's a smooth Teflon surface from Ranger that I highly recommend doing all your crafting on. So I'm just pressing 4 different distress ink colors right onto this craft sheet, and you'll see the 4 blotches of color. And what we're going to do is walk the Hero Arts stamp, this big background stamp, through this ink, and you can flip it over and see the ink ending up on the stamp. So instead of using ink pads to put the ink on the stamp, we're using the craft sheet as our ink pad. Now this is something that works best with distress inks because they blend well and they play well with water, which we're about to use. Now I'm just going to spritz this several times with water. I like to spray from far above so you get a mist and not drops of water. And we're going to stamp it onto watercolor paper from Hero Arts. This is a great technique for inking up your stamps in different ways, something I learned from a fellow Hero artist, Sherry Carroll. So here I'm going to transfer this onto the watercolor paper. You can do it on regular cardstock, but the results won't be as good. And then when I lift it off, you'll see the gorgeous color. You can either let this dry as is or dab away some of those extra ink blotches. Again, you want to use distress inks for this technique as they play well with water and keep their color nice and true. Now I just wanted to show you that distress inks can be used for inking edges with color, not with just a vintage brown distress look. So you can see on the edges of this card, I gave it a nice finished, bold look by rubbing distress inks right on the edges. So again, I'm starting off of the paper with the ink blending tool and slowly working my way onto it in a circular motion. You can see me start off to the side here. So you can use different colors to do this finishing edge, but it's just a great way to add a little pop to your card. Now this is a Sizzix Tim Holtz die cut called Styled Label, and I've just stamped some Hero Arts images on it. I wanted to show you a quick and fast way, like we did before, with coloring with distress inks and the ink blending tool. You saw me dab on a little broken china ink, now a little peeled paint ink, and voila, it's all perfectly colored and you're ready to move on. A great way to finish off some white paper like this white die cut is to lightly rub on a little bit of ink just onto the edges. So here I'm adding some pumice stone to the edges. It kind of creates a shadowy look. And then I'm going directly on the edges and doing a little bit of the broken china blue to make it pop even more. You can see the final results here. Now you see that little bit of glossy shine on the flourish on the deer? Well, I did that with glossy accents also. And since it's a fine area, I just scored a little glossy accent on my craft sheet. And I'm going to use the tip of a pin to apply it to the swirl. Now this craft sheet is great because you can put all kinds of product on it and it'll wipe right off. And if anything does build up on it, which it rarely does, you can just use alcohol to take it right off. And here is the finished project. And this basic design is great for any kind of inking backgrounds you'd like to do. Now for project 3, we're going to do a technique that I call water ink painting. It's basically like watercolor painting, but you're using your distress inks instead. Distress inks are great for this, again, because they stay true to color when mixed with water, and they really blend well. So I'm just pressing some different colors of distress inks right onto my craft sheet and using my craft sheet somewhat like a palette to mix my paints on. So I have 4 different colors on here, and then I'm going to go through and spray each little dab of color with just 1 spritz of water using my Ranger Mini Mister. These are 2 embossed ornaments on watercolor paper from Hero Arts. Both the stamp and the watercolor paper are from Hero Arts. Now you don't have to do this in watercolor paper, but it'll stay nice and colorful and the ink just absorbs nicely into it. So I'm painting with one of my colors around the edges here, just as I would with watercolor, but I find this more forgiving. Now I'm going and adding a little bit of a lighter color. This is Wild Honey. And then I'll add some scattered straw to the center. And you can see how it just all blends together nicely. Very easy to do. And here's the final ornament with using distress inks as watercolor. Now I had a couple things I wanted to show you about adding color to pattern paper. After putting the ornament on this great basic gray pattern paper, I decided I wanted to add this branch across the top from the same Hero Arts Polyclear set. But I didn't want to have to cut out each of those leaves to make them green. So all I'm doing is stamping directly onto the pattern paper, and I'm going to go color in each of these branches very heavily with colored pencil. Since colored pencil sits on top of this paper instead of absorbing in, it blocks that pattern from showing through and gives you better results than when you use markers. That's just a little tip there. You can see here the color really popping out on this card, and then I added glossy accents for a bit of shine. I also wanted to just show you how I added this twine to the ornament. I poked a hole at the top of the ornament and then also at the branch and put the twine through the holes, and I'm just going to tape it on the back. I wanted to add a little bow to the front of the ornament, so I'm using glossy accents, just a tiny little dab. Then I'll put my bow in it and then set something heavy on it to hold it in place. This is one of the strongest adhesives you'll have, and it'll stay put when going through the mail. And there is the final card. I hope this video inspires you to use your distress inks in even more ways. Be sure to visit the link below at 2peasinabucket.com for challenges and prizes that go along with this 8-week class. Thanks for watching.